How you guys doing? Well, let me bring up the volume here.
I guess third time's means a professional diagnosis, but it's my opinion that there is a sickness in America's blue city politics. And this particular sickness hides behind the word compassion, right? It sounds nice. It photographs well. It's great for PR campaigns and propaganda campaigns. It's great when you're trying to get brownie points in front of your progressive elite crowd. Ooh, how virtuous I am. But on the ground, in places Chicago, in blue cities across the country, it's not compassion, it's neglect, it's cowardice. And it seems to be a deliberate choice to prioritize the feelings and the ideology of your woke compatriots, or nowadays, probably more accurately said, your woke comrades, over the safety of law-abiding people who simply want to exist in a safe environment. And worst of all, the most vulnerable amongst us, the people these woke leftoids pretend to advocate for, those at the bottom of the economic totem pole, those who rely on public transport being safe. Yeah, the real compassion protects those people. Real compassion takes dangerous people off the streets and out of these environments. However, the fake version of compassion that Democrats seem to subscribe to is turning the experience on public transport into something akin to playing Russian roulette. You might get punched in the face. You might get stabbed in the neck. If you're lucky, you'll just get robbed. I got some absolutely wild stories to show you guys. We got some stuff to get into. So let's roll the tape. All right, folks. So I got a viral video here. This is coming from the streets of Chicago. We've got this giant, burly looking dude who apparently is very known. He's infamous. He's known as the, quote, loop puncher. He's 6'7". He's very clearly on the spectrum. And what he's known for, I mean, the name says it all, the loop puncher. He's known for randomly and indiscriminately punching people in the face, young girls and women. People say that this guy rides mostly on the red line in Chicago, and he's been arrested more than 20 times for attacking strangers.
Hey, bro, you be punching off, bro? Bro, you're not even like that, little bro.
So his most recent victims are a woman by the name of Kathleen Miles, who he knocked out cold, and also a 15-year-old girl that he elbowed in the face while she was simply walking by. What in the hell is going on? Why is this person on the streets? You know, this is what I'm saying when I'm talking about faux compassion. This is what it looks like in reality in the real world.
What's up?
You leave an obviously
How's it
dangerous,
going, pal?
repeat assailant in public. And then I guess pat yourself on the back and hope for the best. What the hell is going on? But this is left-wing policy. This follows the left-wing dogma, prioritizing feelings over common sense, over justice. This pernicious ideology that views consequences or taking violent, unstable people off the streets is cruel.
Oh, son of a
racist.
fucking gun, bro.
It's unfathomable. He's assaulted more than 20 people indiscriminately, and that's just what we know. You got random people who notice him on the streets and say, hey, you're the guy who randomly punches people on the train. And clearly in this case, we've got private citizens attempting to kind of take action, take it into their own hands. It just goes to show how broken public safety policy is in Democrat cities. This is why crime is spiking, because the predictable result if you put these same repeat offenders on the streets over and over again is that you're going to get more victims. It's like what we saw with Irina Zarutska. People warned about the dangerous pattern relating to this DeCarlos individual. He was mentally unstable, he was unwell, and arrested 14 times for violent offenses. And yet they just kept putting him back on the streets over and over again. I can't wrap my head around it. Well, this is the same thing. It's obviously going to end in disaster. Clearly, this is a person who cannot function in proper society. I don't think any amount of therapy is going to stop what's going on here. And so, you know, it just is what it is, I guess. This is what it is to live in a modern, democratic, free society. You just have to.
Oh my God, are you fucking serious? Come on, bro.
Jamie Raskin
Fucking
said you
suck
have
a
to
dick.
accept the possibility of your wife or daughter being viciously assaulted while taking public transit to school or work. Unbelievable. Obviously, there's going to be consequences here. It's going to end in disaster, and the consequences, in many cases, are irreversible. The victims are paying the price for Democrat delusion and Democrat brownie point farming. Compassion. What compassion? Compassion for the wrong frickin' people. And now, actually, I got another case, just to show you how truly it's become. These both prosecutors and judges are out of control.
Arnold Exantis traveled from Indianapolis to Versailles, walked into the Tipton's homes, and attacked the family in their sleep. Logan was killed, and his father and 2 sisters were injured.
He snaps and just stands up with me sitting on top of him. He throws me across the room. 10-15 feet, he throws me across the room and goes after her.
3 years later, in 2018, Exantis was found not guilty of murder by reason of insanity, but convicted of assaulting other family members. And just this
What's up?
October 1st, Exantis was released early from prison for good behavior.
It's infuriating that a 6-year-old was killed sleeping in his bed, and someone literally only did 10 years in prison, and he didn't even do the time for that. He did time for assault charges.
So that's a situation that's currently happening in South Carolina. We got an individual here who stabbed a 6-year-old to death so viciously and so repeatedly that the knife that he was using bent, and he was found not guilty by reason of insanity, which, you know, that's one thing. But clearly this person is insane and dangerous, and he belongs in some sort of secure psychiatric custody, but instead he's back on the streets. Who is okay with that? Serving 10 years, then back on the streets. So it is what it is. It's out of control, folks. These soft on crime policies are not compassion. This is the deliberate destruction of public order under the guise masquerading as empathy. The left's little social experiment.
Son of a fucking bitch.
Lab rats is
Suck my cock.
restoring justice. Oh, they love your buzzwords. Well, look at the results.
Try another game.
Restorative. I don't see anything being restored. Cities are drowning in open-air drug use. Mentally deranged, violent repeat offenders are walking free. And ordinary citizens, especially those living at the bottom of the economic scale in the least safe environments, they're living in fear. It's all about moral vanity for these loser sociopathic politicians. And you're the one paying the price. The people who are paying the price for these left-wing fantasies are the commuters, the store clerks, the moms, the daughters, the children, the people who become the next unfortunate victims. This naive left-wing worldview behind all of this that treats criminals as the victims. This assumption that evil does not exist, that everybody is a product of their environment. Oh, it's trauma, it's poverty. You know, even if that is the case, no amount of social workers and therapy in many cases will undo that trauma, especially not when mental illness is involved. Not everybody is a vessel of redemption. At some point, we gotta say, enough is enough. These are people who have proved that they have no path to redemption. They cannot function in civilized society, and so they must be institutionalized. Period. To protect the greater good, to protect everybody else. That's not cruel. No, I'd argue that's the real compassion. Anyways, that's what I got for you guys. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you on the next one.
Fuck is this, dude? Seriously.
That old cotton hoodie you wear every day? It's bull. You need the new 340 GSM military grade bearskin hoodie to get comfortable in the wild.
Going into Silent Hill F this year was a more relaxed experience compared to last year's Silent Hill 2 remake. That's not to say there wasn't apprehension over things like the way the combat looked, the decision to set the story outside of the original North American town, or the fact that it would be the first original Silent Hill story in a decade and a half. It's just that it was nowhere near as tense as last year, where I and every OG Silent Hill 2 fan would brood over every frame and every trailer like a teenager overanalyzing a text that they got from their crush, even when that text just says, "What's up, LOL." This time around, there was a generally thicker feeling of optimism for a number of reasons. The most important reason being the story writer, Ryukishi07. He's most famous for a series of murder mystery stories known as When They Cry, and fans of that series immediately noted that the settings, themes, and tone made him a near-perfect candidate for a Silent Hill story. Aside from that, I, among many others, were excited that the game would focus purely on melee combat, and expected that it might provide that sense of vulnerability that we got in the original games. Plus, there seemed to be just this underlying experimental spirit behind this project, which ideally might help Silent Hill regain its boundary-breaking identity. So, did Silent Hill F end up sticking the landing? And is it safe to say that the series is back? Well, let me put it in a way that longtime Silent Hill fans will understand. Silent Hill F is the new Silent Hill 4. In case you don't know what that means, Silent Hill 4 is generally understood as the most divisive in the franchise. There are people that really don't like that game, but then there are people who will fight to the death for it, like Joel at the end of The Last of Us. Then there are people like me that respect the hell out of Silent Hill 4 and think it's a good game, but don't always enjoy playing it. This is all because Silent Hill 4 took the pre-established formula and experimented with it in a variety of bold ways. Some of the results were so good that future games paid homage to it, like how the PT Silent Hills demo adopted a first-person perspective. Other aspects, like the escort mission and the revisiting of past levels, did not. One's willingness to accept and adapt to these kinds of changes will determine one's overall enjoyment of both Silent Hill 4 and Silent Hill F. In my case, the changes made ultimately made me like Silent Hill F overall. In a number of respects, I really like it, but I don't love it. I absolutely loved the first half of the game, but a number of flaws started to become apparent as I entered the second half. That's not to say I dislike or hate the second half. There's a lot of stuff there that I like too, but it was in the second half that every aspect of the game's design started to reveal limitations, from the combat to the story to the graphics, etc. There weren't enough problems to stop me from liking the game nor recommending people give it a shot. But again, your mileage may vary. Two quick things before I get deep into specifics. First, this video contains no spoilers, and all in-game footage that I use will come exclusively from the first half of the game. Second, remember to hit the subscribe button because I will be doing deep dives into Silent Hill F lore over the next couple of months, and you won't want to miss out. Now, let's get started. First up is visual presentation. An editor for IGN Japan named Ezra Krabs said in their preview for Silent Hill F that the town of Ibisugaoka is one of, if not the most impressive realization of a contemporary Japanese town in a video game. And that was coming from somebody who has lived in Japan most of their life and who loves games like Shenmue and Persona. Though I have never been to Japan, it is immediately obvious just how much love and attention went into making the small town of Ibisugaoka feel as authentic to 1960s Japan as possible. The mixture of old-school Japanese elements like tatami mats, shoji screens, Engawa porches, and thatched roofs, alongside more modern building materials like steel and concrete, are all evocative of that era. But what really makes it feel authentic are the small details. A pair of pants hanging out of a washing machine, the labels on candy, or the offerings left at grave sites. It all feels very organic and lived in, even though, because it's a Silent Hill game, everything looks like it was abandoned long ago. The same is true for this game's version of The Other World. Though it abandons a lot of the iconic rust and dirt and replaces it with clean Shinto iconography and architecture, it is nonetheless sinister and unsettling. The most important visual element that I was looking forward to had to do with the underlying design philosophy for Silent Hill F, that being horror through beauty. Through the incorporation of symbols and entities normally associated with beauty, Silent Hill F was able to evolve beyond the drab, grayish, and sepia colors that defined past games and incorporate vivid reds, whites, blues, and greens. The result is both distinct yet familiar, scary but occasionally pretty. It's one of the most unique forms of art direction that I've seen in a video game, and if it weren't for Claire Obscure Expedition 33 releasing this year, I think Silent Hill F would be winning a lot of awards. And of course, all the monster designs exhibit this design philosophy wonderfully while containing all the deep symbolism that we have come to expect, even though I would argue it's easier to determine what monster symbolizes in this game than any game that came before. Now, while the game looks great in terms of art direction and graphical fidelity, does it run well? The answer is generally yes, but there are a couple of big exceptions. From what I understand, the game actually runs surprisingly well on a base PlayStation 5, and much better than Konami's two most recent releases, that being Metal Gear Solid Delta Snake Eater and Silent Hill 2 Remake. Aside from the occasional stutter that we've come to expect from games running on Unreal Engine 5, Silent Hill F maintains an almost consistent 60 frames per second on performance mode. There doesn't appear to be much visual difference in the 30 frames per second quality mode either. The big problem, though, as was the case with MGS Delta, is that for some reason the game currently runs worse on the supposedly superior PlayStation 5 Pro.
Smarter energy, smarter security, smarter home. Vivid and reliant, smarter together.
This is primarily because the PlayStation 5 Pro's unique brand of AI-driven upscaling seems to clash with ray tracing effects. The result is artifacting in shadows and noise effects, and not the cool kind of noise effects like we got with the PS2 era Silent Hill games. That said, I played this game primarily on PC, and though for the most part my experience was fine, generally as good as when I played Silent Hill 2 Remake last year, I did suffer one crash to desktop and I still got a decent amount of Unreal Engine 5 stutter. It's not at all game-breaking though. The majority of the time I had to really be paying attention to notice it. However, there were two sections of the game where it got offensively bad for me. This would happen when I was running through the town and there was a lot of enemies and weather effects happening around me. It was only in this specific area though for some reason, whereas in later parts of the game where there appeared to be even more monsters and effects, I didn't have that problem whatsoever. Hopefully whatever this is can be addressed with performance patches in the future. Overall, it's an excellent visual presentation with generally good performance. That does have some room for improvement. Moving on to sound design and music. There's no safer bet that you can make than betting that a Silent Hill game will have great audio, except maybe betting that Electronic Arts will find some way to monetize your controller batteries. Silent Hill F is no exception. It's a great mixture of all the instruments and industrial sound effects that we have come to expect, with a heavy injection of Asian sonic flavor. One moment you'll be hearing the plucking of acoustic guitar, piano, and mandolin, and the next moment it's Japanese bamboo flutes, Chinese erhu, and my personal favorite, Mongolian throat singing. But interestingly, where I almost never have any criticism on this front with any Silent Hill game, this is the one time I have to make an exception. In most Silent Hill games, there are dozens of tracks that work both as ambiance, but also as great songs in their own right. In Silent Hill F, there was maybe 3 or 4 songs that met those criteria throughout my entire playthrough. I loved the opening track, the tracks with the throat singing, and 1 or 2 tracks near the end. Everything else, though, just sort of faded in the background and never really stood out. Don't get me wrong, the compositions are all excellent. It's just that most of them lacked those catchy, breezy melodies that we've come to expect from the series. I will quickly say, though, that there are a couple of moments in these songs where it seems like Akira Yamaoka uses a leitmotif from an older Silent Hill game, say from Silent Hill 1's main theme. And when you hear it, the feeling is sublime. Now that was the easy stuff. Let's move on to what is arguably the most controversial element of Silent Hill F, the combat. So, going into Silent Hill F, there were legitimate reasons to be optimistic and pessimistic about combat. On the optimistic side, there appeared to be a lack of impacts with melee attacks, the inclusion of a stamina bar was questionable, and the protagonist's Dragon Ball Z style dodge was off-putting, and not in the cool Silent Hill way. Though I shared some of that pessimism, I was generally optimistic, because it looked like the combat was trying to bring the franchise back to that claustrophobic jankiness which made me feel so vulnerable and terrified in the original Silent Hill games. Stuff like the lack of firearms, the inclusion of weapon durability, and what appeared to be an emphasis on avoiding enemies rather than attacking them sounded very encouraging. So what was the result? Honestly, it's really mixed. For the first half of the game, I think I'm more positive on the combat system than most people, but for the second half, I think I share the majority of people's criticisms. The reason why I say the combat is great in the first half is because it is designed primarily for encounters with 3 enemies or less that are lower level, for lack of a better term. Unless you're facing off against just one of these mannequin enemies or doll enemies, the likelihood that you're going to take a lot of damage is high. I loved this because, again, it encourages you to try and juke the enemies and conserve your resources. If you can't get around them, you have to very carefully time your light and heavy attacks and consider your position relative to the enemy to make sure the attack lands. Then you have to make sure you have enough stamina to either land another attack or back away without getting hit. This is exactly what made the combat in the older games work, albeit updated. It's clunky, but it made everything scarier for me. Best of all, you're normally encountering these enemies in tight spaces, and even when you try to juke them, it's not guaranteed you will succeed. I mean, sure, you can use the lightning-fast dodges to juke them, but those cost a lot of stamina. I can't tell you how many times I would juke one enemy, then go around a corner and be unable to juke another one and then lose half of my health. This also kept me cycling through health items, which is a far cry to my experience with Silent Hill 2 Remake's combat. Though I prefer the remake's combat system overall, I can't deny that I never died once and was swimming in health items before the end of that game. So having that sense of vulnerability brought back was bliss to me. But then I got to the second half of the game. Now, as I said at the beginning of this video, I'm not showing any gameplay footage from the second half, but this means I will have to dance around what the problems are a little bit. So, while a good amount of what made the combat great in the first half of the game for me is maintained in the second half, there's unfortunately a number of times where you will have to take on a variety of enemies at once. The combat system is simply not constructed to work in these scenarios. I myself played the whole game on hard difficulty, which, by the way, just as a quick tangent, this game has the worst names for their difficulty settings. It's Story, Hard, and Lost in the Fog. Honestly, the story combat difficulty in this game is probably slightly harder than Silent Hill 2 Remake's normal difficulty, but most first-timers won't pick it because they'll assume it's too easy, so they choose hard, thinking that it means it will actually be normal difficulty. Thing is, I probably died more times playing Silent Hill F on hard than I have playing all the other Silent Hill games combined. I am dead serious. But back to the point, when you're facing off against a horde of enemies in a more action-oriented scenario, not only is that mostly foreign to all the other Silent Hill games, the combat system isn't designed in a way to make that fun. It's designed to discourage you from facing the enemies unless you absolutely have to. So when you're going up against some enemies that take what seem like 20 to 30 hits to bring one of them down, and there are a bunch of weaker but still somewhat tanky enemies around them, and you have to do that multiple times in a row, the game quickly becomes tonally and mechanically inconsistent. It's not that these encounters are hard, though they will be for some people. It's that they felt really tedious. It makes the game feel like it's grinding to a halt, and that becomes an even bigger problem if you play the game on Lost in the Fog difficulty. Good luck with that. There are other moments where the game veers more into the action side of things, but again, I can't discuss that further without spoilers. But this is just my opinion on the matter. Based on what I can gather online, there is a sizable number of people that really can't stand how restrictive the combat can feel. If I were to summarize the general sentiment towards combat, I would use the same word used by Oscar Taylor Kent over at Games Radar. It feels over-engineered. They tried to marry the old-school clunkiness with modern game design staples like stamina and dodging, when they could have settled for something simpler like what Silent Hill 2 Remake did. While I appreciate the experimental spirit, and it works the majority of the time for me, it's clear that this is not the case for a sizable chunk of players, and understandably so. But is the general gameplay good, and is it scary? Are the puzzles, exploration, the bosses, are they on par? For the most part, yes. You still find yourself doing the usual Silent Hill shtick, where you're indoors, checking which doors are locked or unlocked, finding key items and resources, solving puzzles, and typically fighting some sort of boss at the end. With the exception of 2 areas in the second half, the classic gameplay loop is as good as it has ever been. The puzzles are really neat too. Aside from 2 puzzles that I personally had trouble with, the puzzles on hard difficulty all felt genuinely fair and gave me a great sense of satisfaction when I completed them. Above all, the best moment in this game for me, and this isn't a spoiler because this was in the previews for the game.
Here are 5 reasons you'll want to travel with the light carry-on. 1. It's lightweight at just 2.1 kilograms, so you can use your weight allowance on the things you need. Then compress it down when you're done. 2. It has been